Were you surprised that the Kraft family joined the one and done club, Chris?
I guess I'm not surprised, but I do think he kind of stepped in it. Like, you know, there we all know it's really hard for black coaches to get jobs in the NFL, like head jobs. History has shown that. I mean, I think it's getting better, but there's a lot of work to be done still. And yeah, Gerard Mayo, who is a draft class mate of mine, like we're the same damn age, and I'm so excited watching him get a job. It was a short path for him to get that job, but they didn't really give him a chance. And they didn't invest in that team in free agency. Like anybody could have seen, like Bill Belichick won what, 5 games his first year. I'm not saying Mayo was going to be Bill, but I think unfortunately for Gerard, it ended up being a thing where Mike Vrabel's out there. And I think Robert Kraft made a messy decision a couple years ago, trying to kind of not trying to clip his wings and saying, "Hey, you got to stay here," but almost operating out of FOMO. Like if this guy leaves and he's a great coach, I'm going to feel really bad about it. So I'm going to do this guy a solid. But really, what you're doing is you're hoarding the coach, and then you give the coach 1 year to succeed. And like I don't know when he gets another opportunity like this. So, I think it culminates in another messy decision where you're like, hey, I was trying to do a solid by Gerard. And I think Robert's a great guy and has been a really good owner for, obviously a long time. But I felt like post Tom Brady and post Bill, it's definitely more of a strain to make these decisions. Like you're used to making decisions with this long runway. And I think part of the being naive enough to think, hey, we can make a 5 year decision on who Bill's successor is, and then to accelerate the timeline on Bill's demise in New England yourself, and then lament the fact that Gerard actually, in retrospect, didn't have enough time. Well, you sped that clock up, So I think it was just a messy decision, and it leads to another messy decision where you got to fire a guy after 1 year, and that's never a good thing. Like we whoever the coach is over the past 10 20 years, we anytime a guy gets fired in the first year, which is kind of an increasing trend, like everybody's going to look at you a little sideways. But he can definitely find the right guy. I mean, I think you can net out and find yourself the right coach and be in a better situation. But it does suck for Gerard Mayo, who took that job, and it wasn't a highly desirable job. I know they used to play there and everything, and they don't really invest in the team. The team's not great, and a year later, he's on the street. But I do think if the defense was better, um, he might still be there, because I do think part of the dynamic is like Robert doesn't want uh he doesn't want to fire Bill and then watch the defense get worse and people say, "Oh, well, we miss Bill." Like there's still some of that there. I think ultimately those press conference gaffes and whatnot, and what the fans thought, which is something that Robert Kraft's made abundantly clear, that he does listen to the pulse of the fan base and that sort of thing, and he is a fan himself. Like that factored in. So I think it's just another instance of an owner making a very human decision. I'm not saying he did it with any ill intent, but it was messy and it wasn't thought through. And once you put that clause in his contract and then you fire Bill a little bit before maybe you thought you'd let him go, what do you think's going to happen? The guy's only been coaching 4 or 5 years. You give him a job, it only lasts a year. You don't invest in the team. It's just a crappy situation for Gerard Mayo. But I do think that's a desirable job. I would just say this, like, just because Vrabel is on the menu and McDaniel's name's been thrown around, like, I'm not saying I know a lot by being there for a year, but what I am saying is like a media member and somebody who's watched that program kind of rise and fall, so to speak. Like the Patriot Way isn't something you just snap your fingers and get. Like it's not like, oh, we're gonna hire Mike and it's gonna go back to like what it was, or Josh, you get the band together. Like you have to open the search, and I think they will, to people like Ben Johnson. Like at some point you have to move on from the past. You can still retain some of those qualities that made those teams great, some of the culture touch points, but like to me, it's a little bit short-sighted to just be like, hey, we have the privilege of hiring only the people we truly trust in this building, which is the way they did things for a long time. But you don't have that privilege anymore. You don't have Tom Brady. You don't have Bill Belichick.
Mm.
So I think you got to open that search, and you can't cling too tightly to the past. But yeah, the decision for Gerard to coach a year kind of sucks. And I'm not saying Robert Kraft's a bad guy or a bad owner, but I think it was a really messy decision, and he steps in it because of the black coach thing, which is a reality.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.